Hi everyone, my name is Juan Camilo Alcaraz. Today I will going to talk about the new rebranded plugin from AMD called Radeon ProRender, also known as RPR. Okay, so let's start. What I have here is a basic scene with a boot on a couple of vehicles, and I will going to show you how to manage, how to set up the lighting, how to work with this new plugin. Okay, so let's start. The first thing I will going to do, this is my personal choice. I will going to close this particular thing because I didn't need it right now. The second thing I usually do is to try to work with only 2 viewports because I don't need all those 4 viewports, so I will going to switch to this particular view. Okay, so here is the working viewport, and this one will going to be one of my cameras. I can split this in, for example, in 3, like this one. So this will going to be my working viewport, and this could be my camera 1, and this could be my camera 2, for example, just to have the different point of view. Okay, so what I want to start first with this particular project. In Radeon ProRender, I will going to define as renderer. Right now, if I press F10, I can select the production mode and I can find Radeon ProRender, or I can move to ActiveShade and I can select Radeon ProRender 2. Right now, I suggest to use first the ActiveShade while you are working, defining materials, testing different setups. But when you are ready to render your final shot, you have to, or you should move to the production rendering. So right now I live in ActiveShade mode, Radeon ProRender. Inside my parameters, right now I'm using this version 1.8.2. I will not going to touch anything of these parameters. This is one of the coolest things of Radeon ProRender, is it's an easy to use, is just define as a renderer and start tweaking and adjusting your scene and see the results. I will going to decrease my ActiveShade render size, and I will going to show you the different workflows you have. The first workflow is to just hit render directly from my working viewport. If I hit render, let's wait a little bit until the scene is launched. Okay, right now the scene is rendering. Like you can see, everything is black, completely black, because I don't have any light in the scene, and because I have some emissive materials. Like you can see this logo and a couple of things, so you can notice that everything is completely dark. So right now in launch the ActiveShade, I have this. I will move into this part. So if I move right now, if I orbit, if I move to any particular direction, the ActiveShade is updating. I will going to start. The first thing I usually do is create this new light. Is a Radeon ProRender light. That you can see, it's called RPR environment. I will going to create on any place inside the scene. It works like a default 3ds Max sky, and here with this RPR environment I can load an image based lighting, a light that will going to illuminate my scene. So I will just load an HDRI. I have here a basic HDRI, like you can see, just a black image with a couple of white lights. I will going to load this particular image, and like you can see, right now I have my scene lighted by this particular HDRI image. If I rotate, I can see my HDRI image is surrounding all the environment. It's just a couple of a black area with a couple of lights. Let me see if I can see it. Like you can see, this is it. Okay, so this is the first workflow I suggest. For example, if you want to move close to a particular part of the image, you can have the ActiveShade window open all the time. Like you can see, you can move around, you can move freely, and you can see exactly how things are looking right now. The other workflow you have is the one I will going to show you next, is if I have defined particular cameras inside the scene, I don't have, or I don't want to start moving and see this particular ActiveShade updating all the time, following while I'm working. The thing I want is to have only the camera that is going to be the final shot or the final image looking exactly how it will going to look. Okay, so right now I continue with this particular thing. I will show you, for example, one of the features we have with this RPR environment. Like you can see right now, the environment is exactly the same as the HDRI image is lighting the scene. But for example, if I want to have a different environment, different background, and a different lighting illumination setup, I can do the next thing. Like you can see here, we have a background options here to have two different image, one for lighting and one for the black backplate or the background. Another cool thing about having this RPR environment is that I can rotate, and like you can see, the image will going to rotate. Let me rotate a little bit more until I see how it's changing. Like you can see right now, I have this particular light moving. If I continue rotating, I can place this particular environment on any place I want. This is quite easy to set up. You don't have to go to the map like in all workflows. Like you can have to load the map into material editor and adjust the UV tiling or things like that. You just have to rotate this particular object, and you can define exactly the location of your HDRI image. Another cool thing is that you can adjust the multiply for the intensity of this particular image. For example, I can decrease to 0, and it's completely turned off. I can start increasing as much as I want until I find exactly the value I really want. For example, we're going to overexpose the HDRI image. Okay, so I will leave as default 1. And the thing I was mentioned about how to have a different, for example, I like this illumination, but I don't like this background. These two bars, black and white, are too visible, so I want to replace by a simple color, a gradient, image, I don't know. So I will going to enable background. I will going to load a bitmap. Let me clear, sorry. And instead of bitmap, I will going to load just a gradient. I will load a gradient map, and like you can see, I have here a gradient map from white to black. I will going to adjust this particular gradient. So I will open my material editor. Let me clean this. Okay, so what I have to do is just drag this gradient to my material editor as an instance, and here I can make the adjustment I want. For example, I want just a darker environment, something like this, and this one I will going to decrease, I don't know, have a darker version. Okay, something like this, nothing too complex, just a small regular background, a gradient with black, go to black with a small gradient type. Okay, I will make a couple of noise here. I'll just a little bit of noise for my background. Okay, something like this. Okay, to avoid a completely regular background, just a couple of variation. Okay, that's exactly what I want, nothing more. Okay, so like you can see, using this RPR environment object, you can make a couple of adjustments, very cool. And having the active shade all the time, like you can see, I can work and I can move freely, and I can see all the updates directly into the active shade. So I will close this active shade right now, and I will see what we have here. Like I told you from the beginning, what we have on another workflow you can use is, instead of having this floating window, the active shade as floating window, you can define one of your 3ds Max viewports as an RPR viewport rendering, so that enable the active shade directly in this particular viewport. So I click over the camera, extended viewports, and just enable active shade. What I have here, like you can see, the active shade window is now rendering directly inside this viewport. The thing, or the cool thing about this workflow, is that I can move freely. I can continue working inside my scene, and I don't have to all the time having this following me for all the scenes. So I will going to continue showing another things we can use with RPR render. I will going to press F, the environment. The shortcut is the 8 number on keyboard, and like you can see here, we have the RPR have a support, is compatible with different exposure controls. For example, I will go into no exposure control sorry, and this I can select one of the 3ds Max default exposure controls. In future versions, we're going to have the RPR own exposure control or tone mapping, but this feature is very nice because if you are familiarizing with this particular for example exposure control, like the logarithmic, you can adjust your image, you can increase your brightness, you can increase or your contrast, and make a couple of adjustments. Let me decrease a little bit. You can, for example, make a basic adjustment like mid-tones. This exposure control is a completely is quite basic to use. You can, for example, a color correction in case you want to change the bluish or the yellowish of from your image. You can adjust this in a simple way. So like you can see, I'm working completely on real time. This is extremely fast. Else than that, you can use almost everything you have here. We recommend the use of physical camera. Right now I'm using 3ds Max 2K 17, and the physical camera exposure control is one of the cool things we have. So you can adjust, for example, this exposure value. If you decrease this value, increase the intensity, or the opposite right here. You can adjust, for example, you can have this color correction exactly the same as the other exposure control. You can make a small adjustment, for example, if you want to give a little bit of color to your image, and else than that, you can control exactly the highlights, the mid-tones, and everything you want in your particular image. So all these things that you can see are completely on real time, no time required to calculate, it's extremely fast. Here, for example, the color saturation in case you want to decrease the saturation of your image. So this particular exposure control is very nice, works very nice for this particular example. And so let's continue using this particular method. Okay, so else than using a simple image to light the scene like I have right now, and else than have these emissive materials like you can see here that are lighting a little bit this particular part, we can create, or we can use the 3ds Max Photometric Light to improve the lighting inside the scene. So right now I'm going to Photometric. I will select the free light, and I will going to create in any particular part of my scene. Like you can see, I can move it, and in this particular viewport we are looking exactly what is happening. Okay, so I will going to move to a better viewport position. I will going to place my light exactly when I want. Okay, that's it. Let's set up one single light, and later we can clone all the other ones. Okay, so right now I have my light, like you can see, is emitting light inside the scene. We can adjust all the basic parameters from this particular light. For example, the distribution, if we want the uniform spherical, or if we want the uniform diffuse that is lighting down. We can switch to, for example, spotlight. But the thing I want to test here or show you is the use or the support of photometric web. So right now I switch to photometric web. I will going to find, or let me see, I will select the light. So here is an IES file. It's just a soft arrow IES. I will open, and like you can see right now it is loading this particular photometric web. I will going to increase the intensity to see how it looks. So right now, like you can see, I am lighting the scene with this particular photometric light. If, for example, I want to see this more close, I will going to close this particular viewport, and I will launch again the ActiveShade to see this directly close to the position I am right now, and see how this light is lighting or is distributing inside the scene. So like you can see, I will leave a little bit longer to see exactly the effect. Like you can see here, we have this particular shape. This particular shape comes from the photometric light. So it's a matter of waiting a couple of times until it's clean, but because we don't have enough time, I will going to show you another things. So okay, let's go back. For example, I have tested this as a ActiveShade. Right now I will select, for example, the camera 2 as ActiveShade, and like you can see, I can work freely, and I can clone this light as an instance. Okay, okay, so right now, like you can see, I have a basic scene with one main IBL lighting, this one, with a different environment, a couple of photometric lights apply on it, and I can, in fact, I will going to create for these two lights we have here. I will going to clone this light as copy, not as instant, because for this particular I want to, instead of using photometric web, I want to use the distribution of a spotlight, just a simple spotlight. Let me see, I will switch, I will close this, and I will switch to another the other viewport. So the cool thing about this workflow I'm using, or this layout I'm using, is that you can, for example, in this particular part of the viewport, I don't see exactly how these spotlights are lighting the scene. So I want to switch back to this. So I don't have to close and open this. I just have to click over the camera and switch to ActiveShade. Automatically it will going to switch between viewports, and right now I can see the spotlight how it's lighting right now to the floor. I can clone this as instance again. Let me select it. Okay, I think it's okay. I think it's almost done. I mean, right now we have the lining, a couple of color correction just for testing purpose, and we are having we seen how the active shades working and how we can use the active shades inside a viewport. So I hope this particular and short tutorial gives you a basic idea how to work directly with the new RPR render for 3ds Max, and I hope you like it. See you soon. Bye.